Expanded horizons. In recent years, the Atmosphere Market Report has focused on the state of the natural refrigerants marketplace for commercial and industrial refrigeration in Europe, North America, the US and Canada, and Japan. These regions have powered the industry's growth, and the 2024 Atmosphere Market Report reflects this, while also acknowledging that natural refrigerants are beginning to establish themselves in other markets. This year, we've assessed the state of the natural refrigerants marketplace in Europe, North America, Japan, Australia and New Zealand, and Latin America, Mexico, Central America, and South America. We expect to see strong growth in Australia and New Zealand and Latin America in the coming years, with our optimism backed by solid foundations in each region. For example, in New Zealand, there are an estimated 240 supermarkets and grocery stores using transcritical CO2 systems, a market penetration of 22%, while in Ecuador the figures are an estimated 125 supermarkets and a market penetration of 13%. In addition, Latin America is a leading market for self-contained hydrocarbon cases. There are an estimated 8.5 million installed in Latin America, 2.6 million in Mexico, and a combined 5.9 million in Central and South America. The market for natural refrigerants in Australia and New Zealand and Latin America has formed largely in the absence of national F-gas regulations and government subsidies. By contrast, regulations and subsidies continued to support the industry's growth in Europe, North America, and Japan. The revised EU F-gas regulation became law in March 2024, and throughout the year the chorus to regulate PFAS, which would include F-gases, and F-gas byproduct trifluoroacetic acid, TFA, became louder. Amid these developments, the number of food retail stores in Europe using transcritical CO2 systems reached 90,700, a market penetration of 30%, while the total of installed self-contained hydrocarbon cabinets reached 17 million. A total of 4,900 European industrial sites used transcritical CO2, an increase of 48% from 2023. The U.S. EPA's SNAP 26 regulation raised the maximum allowable charge for hydrocarbon cabinets, paving the way for an increased adoption of self-contained propane cases. The states of New York and Washington enacted new F-gas regulations, while Maine and Minnesota have revised their PFAS regulations. The number of stores in North America using transcritical CO2 rose to 4,100, up 40% from 2023, while the number of installed hydrocarbon self-contained cases reached 4.6 million. There were 870 industrial sites using transcritical CO2, an increase of 74%. Low-charge ammonia continued its climb. The 1,230 sites in 2024 were an increase of 17% over 2023, with the number of packaged units jumping 38%. Ongoing government support, in the form of subsidies for installing natural refrigerant systems, continued to boost transcritical CO2 in Japan. Installations in supermarkets, grocery stores, and convenience stores reached 12,250, with convenience stores accounting for 11,500 of that total, a gain of 47% year over year. The progress of natural refrigerants is not just measured in total installations, but also in evolving regulations. This report takes an in-depth look at the PFAS restriction proposal under consideration in Europe, the raft of new state regulations in the U.S. limiting the GWP of refrigerants, and efforts to institute GWP limits for refrigerants in Australia and New Zealand, among other examples. Regardless of the measurement you prefer, our 2024 market report shows that the horizons for natural refrigerants are expanding, both in new markets and established ones.